welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review. This is Subject Blue. Now, Subject Blue is not completely and utterly free to play. Does spend a tiny bit of money from time to time, but not consistently. So I would not put him on the Dolphin status. Has been playing for a long time in the Omega squad. Yes, what's up, Omega? There's a couple others in E and an A. I think they're in the Alliance, but the Omega guild is where he's at. So as far as Arena, that's the first thing he wanted to know about. Arena, the Arena squad you're using, I will say stay put. Leave it exactly as you have it. This is the first time I think I've ever said that. I know you're only 139th and you want to go up higher, and you will go up higher, but you're working on getting your first Zeta. You got to get 20 of those Zeta pieces, and once you have 20 Zeta pieces, you can Zeta somebody. And since Arena is where you get crystals, I would recommend once you have your Zeta ability and you're able to put it into somebody, this is how I would do it. Your team. All right, so your new Arena team, once you Zeta Darth Maul as the leader, once you can get this Zeta, then you're going to put Darth Maul in the lead, and then you're going to put Emperor Palpatine behind him and Darth Nihilus behind him. Now, looking down here, your Darth Nihilus is only gear 8. You're definitely going to have to continue to gear Darth Nihilus in the meantime to make sure that he's high enough to be effective in your Arena team. Also, I would put Boba Fett in here for the ability block and the insta-kill. Having Darth Nihilus and Boba Fett in one team is phenomenal. You can destroy the opposing team really quickly. The other thing is if you ever decided to Zeta a second person, you could Zeta Boba Fett and it won't affect anything because it's a unique, not a leadership Zeta ability. And then the last I would put on this is actually your Stormtrooper Han. He is your most powerful character in your entire lineup. He's pretty fast with the mods you have on him. And surprisingly, a lot of people forget about him, but if he taunts and they start hitting him, he's going to give your entire team a bunch of turn meter. It can speed up an already fast team. I only think about Stormtrooper Han because someone on my shard has tried this, threw Stormtrooper Han on, and it's super irritating when he taunts. And most of the teams now that they're using only have Darth Nihilus to dispel, and a lot of times Darth Nihilus is a little slower than the rest of the team, so it takes a while for them to dispel. And in the meantime, they're hitting your Stormtrooper Han and giving you extra turn meter, which is exactly the whole point of him. Plus, he's a tank and can taunt. So there's definitely that. Plus, when he taunts, he's going to throw up some turn meter. So definitely would recommend a very interesting little weird combination. But Zeta, your Darth Maul, put Emperor Palpatine, Darth Nihilus, Boba Fett, and Saint Han together, and make sure you finish working on Boba Fett and Darth Nihilus as far as the gearing goes so you can be really competitive. So that's what I would do with Arena. As far as the Heroic AAT, I would recommend, like I do with most people, a Jedi team. Okay, so I would recommend, just for now anyway, just the top 5 that you have. You've got Yoda, Qui-Gon Jinn, Luminara, Jedi Knight Anakin, and Ahsoka Tano. If you have the time and resources, you could get Ayla Secura leveled up so she could be in that team, and you could also work in Barriss Offee. She's an excellent healer, and she has a great unique ability that you could Zeta down the road as well. Being mostly free to play with very little money, if any, spent, you're not going to be able to get too many Zeta pieces, and so you're going to have to be careful in what you put Zeta on. Darth Maul definitely would be the #1 choice, in my opinion, for what you have unlocked. As far as a Phase 2 team, I'm going to say Jawas and Droids. You're going to need to get your Chief Nebit and your Jawa Engineer maxed out for this team. And you're going to need to get your 88, 86, and HK-47 maxed out for this team. You cannot do the Heroic AAT with this team without all these guys at 7 stars. So drop these 5, the Jawas that I mentioned and these droids, into your favorites and start working on them with a couple of those Jedi so you can get going. In Phase 3, for free-to-play, I suggest just a basic Empire team. So you can use your Emperor Palpatine, TIE Fighter Pilot, Royal Guard, Darth Vader, and you could put in some of your Sith in here. You could even take Darth Vader out for a couple of the Sith that you've worked up, like Darth Nihilus is excellent in Phase 3 in an Empire team because he does the insta-kill for 100,000 on the primary target. Pretty awesome. And you could also use Darth Maul for the daze, which in Phase 3, if everyone knows, there's a lot of targets that Darth Maul can gain a lot of life health on, because every time he kills one, he gains life, and he can daze them. They take a lot of extra bonus turns. He'll prevent that with his AoE daze. So Darth Maul and Darth Nihilus mixed with Royal Guard, TIE Fighter Pilot, Emperor Palpatine would be an excellent Phase 3 team. And for Phase 4, I would recommend Rebels, and your top 5 Rebels would be who I'd probably recommend for Phase 4. They're your top 5. You're not too focused on Rebels in the game, and I get it. You like other characters, and so that's fine. The team that you have is probably more than sufficient for doing some decent 2% damage in the Phase 4 of the Heroic AAT. As far as Rancor goes, I would actually recommend... Now, this is a free-to-play team that I'm recommending with the Rancor, and it starts with the traditional T-Bow lead, so you got to get him up, which you do. You want to continue to gear him up. Qui-Gon Jinn, obviously, for turn meter reduction as well, and you want to continue to gear him up. Also, you do not have Rex, but I would highly recommend you put him on an immediate need to get, both for the Rancor and just because he's one of the top characters in the game, and he has a great ship. He's usable literally everywhere. So get Rex so you can put him in your Rancor team. Next, I'd recommend for your free-to-play Rancor team would be TIE Fighter Pilot. You already have him 7-star gear 9. He's ready to go. But if you want to continue to gear him to make him a little stronger, put that last piece of gear in, get him to gear 10. He's going to put your tenacity down, so your T-Bow, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Rex will actually apply the turn meter reduction that they are attempting to do. And the last will be Royal Guard. Not only is he a tank there to try to help, but he's an excellent Empire character to gear up. He's the best. Since you don't have Shore Trooper, you're going to have to use Royal Guard on Empire-based teams. Also, on his basic, he can put a stun potential on targets, but in the Rancor, he'll put speed down, which is really important. Having tenacity down and speed down is going to help you a ton, especially with your traditional T-Bow, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Rex-led turn meter reducing teams. Now, I'm going to go into a couple of people I feel like that you need to farm. There's about 6 that I'm going to give you. I didn't want to overwhelm you too much, but the first couple of them come out of the Jedis, and I say Jedi Knight Anakin, you definitely need to finish Jedi Knight Anakin, get him up. Not only is he good in the Jedi squad that you have, but he's good in all other squads. He's got a great AoE. He's a great defensive character. He can put buff immunity on people's heads. Just a great all-around character. So finish him off. The next is Darth Nihilus. You have him at gear 8. I would continue to gear him up. I know he's going to be a grind just like Jedi Knight Anakin is, but definitely Darth Nihilus is one of those that is extremely viable even at only 3 stars, and he'll be usable in the heroic raids, the Rancor raid. You know, he's usable in Arena, he's usable in Galactic War, he's usable so many places. You definitely want to make sure you're focused on Darth Nihilus. The next is Sunfac. I know a lot of people think Sunfac's falling out to the wayside, but as a mostly free-to-play person, you need to have a couple of really good tanks that you can plug in different parts of the game, from Galactic War to Arena. And Sunfac is a phenomenal, one of the top 3 best tanks in the game. So I would highly recommend finishing gear him. I believe you have him at gear 8. Continue to get him up. Now, looking in here, I notice you do not have B2, and also in your clones, you do not have Rex. Those 2 characters right there, in my opinion, are your number 1 and your number 2 priorities in the entire game, hands down, for free to play. You need to get Rex. He's one of the best leaders, and you need to get B2 because B2 is the answer to all the different meta changes that are occurring. Every meta that comes and goes, every character change that comes and goes, Rex and B2 have always been there from the very, very start. So you're going to need to get B2 and Rex and level them up and gear them up. Now, the only downside is Rex is kind of hard to farm out of the ship shipments, and you don't get that many ship credits. Currency, so you're going to have to really play that wisely, but definitely get Rex and definitely get B2. Now let's move to ships where you're actually doing very well. I'm not going to give you a ton of changes because what you're doing is really, really great. But I would say you're using Admiral Akbar. Continue to use Admiral Akbar. The only ship on here that I would pull is I would pull Wedge out and put Sunfac in. It's going to give you a little bit more durability in your initial lineup. So you're going to have 2 tanks. You're going to have your Sunfac and your Biggs as your two tanks. Then you're going to have Slave 1 and Ahsoka, Slave 1 for the turn lock and Ahsoka to be able to dispel. And then I would take your Scimitar out for the Imperial TIE Fighter. And the reason for that is the Imperial TIE Fighter is going to be hard to hit, dodgy, give you extra turn meter, and is going to apply target lock. It'll be a second ship to apply target lock, which you need. Then in your backup, you're going to put the Scimitar first. You're going to use the Scimitar in your first lineup in the backup, so that way when he comes in, he's guaranteed to be able to use his ability, and you got 2 tanks, and one of them should be alive when he comes in, which means he's going to possibly put it on one of those 2 tanks, and if he puts it on Sunfac, you're going to have target lock for days. So this is an excellent first in your backup, and then the next 2 in your backup I would do is then, since you pulled Wedge from the initial lineup, have him in your backup. He's going to come in hot and heavy, hit for a ton of damage, and he's pretty tanky as well as a ship, period, so he'd be great. And then as the last ship, kind of last resort, I would be bringing in your Jedi Consular. He's going to call assists. He's also going to put protection up, and he's real tanky. So I would definitely continue with him. Plus, he's one of your Jedi that you're using right now. So definitely that's what I would do. I would pull Wedge from the initial lineup. I would definitely use Admiral Akbar like you're using. I would pull Wedge from the initial lineup, and I would pull the Scimitar from your initial lineup, and I would replace them with Sunfac and the Imperial TIE Fighter, and then in your backup, Scimitar, Wedge, and Jedi Consular. So Subject Blue, everything looks great. I know you spent a tiny bit of money in the game, but overall is a mostly free-to-play character. You have done phenomenal. Shout out to Omega again. As always, I hope this has helped both you, Subject Blue, and everybody watching as far as strategy of who to farm and how to rearrange ships to get the most out of your arena. As always, keep your gaming on. Warrior, out.